Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Westlake High, in the residential suburb of Silver Creek, Ohio, was not just a high school. It was a carefully lit theater, where each student played a well-assigned role. The hallways smelled of fresh wax and the scent of expensive brands. The walls, decorated with the artwork of selected students, exuded program success. Here, grades mattered, yes, but not as much as prestige, origins, and appearance. Silver Creek itself was a picture postcard town, populated by precisely mowed lawns, silent electric SUVs, and well-bred families, where money circulated cleanly, without ostentation, but with fierce social rigor. In Westlake, privileges were never displayed, they were implied. We didn't say, "I'm rich," we wore shoes that couldn't be found for less than $1,000. We didn't say, "I despise you," we just laughed a little too loudly at a joke about your looks, your name, or your hair. Power was not exercised in shouts. It was imposed in silences. And at the top of this silent hierarchy reigned Brianna Caldwell. Daughter of Dr. Jonathan Caldwell, renowned plastic surgeon in Columbus, and Kimberly Ross, a lifestyle influencer with 2.3 million followers, Brianna grew up in a world of apparent perfection, where every emotion was carefully filtered before being shared. She knew how to use appearance like a weapon. Carefully wavy blonde hair, impeccable nails, uniform always fitted to the seam, Brianna was never neglected, because in her world, neglect meant decline. Popular? Obviously. Loved? Yes, but as one loves fire, from afar, and with caution. She never shouted or got angry in public. But a frown, a simple pointed look, was enough to cause a student's social isolation in less than a day. She excelled at causing pain without leaving any visible trace. His group, the Gilded, took its name from the gilded cages, these golden cages in which rare birds are locked. There were 4 of them: Haley, Madison, Sophie et Brianna, each carefully selected. Daughters of lawyers, businessmen, politicians. Their implicit motto: you don't have to be better than other people. They just have to believe you are. The Gilded didn't need to hit or shout. They made people fall par omission, par insinuation, par suggestion. A badly cut dress? Laughing too loudly in class? An accent that betrayed modest origins? Everything became a cause for hushed mockery. They humiliated with a smile. Destroyed self-esteem with grace. Their favorite weapon, the jokes. Carefully wrapped in mockery, it's impossible to denounce without coming across as too sensitive. And their law was simple, brutal in its elegance. Either you fit in or you fade away. It wasn't just about clothes or popularity. It was about compliance. Walk, talk, breathe according to their codes. To refuse was to expose oneself to the icy contempt of the entire school. And in this closed universe, social contempt was equivalent to pure and simple erasure. The October 3rd, at 7:34 a.m. sharp, while the sun painted the glass facades of the high school with golden reflections, a new silhouette crossed the main doors of Westlake High. Amina Rivers. 16 ANS. She walked straight, neither too fast nor too slow. No visible nervousness, no attempt to appear smaller or larger than she was. She was just there, with a strangely dense presence, as if she carried a weight that no one saw. Her skin, a deep black with warm highlights, contrasted with the pale or artificially tanned complexions of the surrounding students. His eyes, dark brown, almost black, had that rare way off look straight ahead, to capture the world without fearing it or imploring it. And above all, their washer hair, long thick dreadlocks, braided with precision, raised in a sort of high bun which gave it a look that was both royal and rebellious, ancestral and contemporary. She didn't wear them as a fashion statement. She wore them as a legacy. No designer bag. No logo shoes. No glitter phone case. She wore a simple, unbranded black sweatshirt, plain jeans, and clean but worn sneakers. Not a single jewel. And yet, She attracted attention. Not like a star. Like a foreign body in a system that is too well oiled. It only took a few minutes for Westlake High to do what he did best: catalog. Classify. Suspect. In the corridors, whispers were piling up. She comes from a military high school. I was told she got into a fight with a boy and he ended up in the hospital. She doesn't talk to anyone, not even the teachers. Seriously, have you seen her hair? It looks like a rainforest. There's something weird about her. Too quiet, too closed off. But no one really knew. So, we invented. Middle-class girls avoided her for fear of being associated with the weird girl. The boys, however, looked at her with a mixture of intrigue and embarrassment, fascinated by her beauty, but unsettled by her silent confidence. As for the teachers, they didn't know whether to admire him for his concentration, or worry about his muteness. More, what no one understood, is that Amina's silence was not a void. It was a rampart. A year earlier, Amina had attended a different high school, in a less polished, more troubled neighborhood. There, a racist argument had escalated into a brutal assault. 3 male students surrounded her one day as she left PE class. They had pulled his hair, insulted his skin, ripped his bag. Amina hadn't screamed. She had curled up. And that evening, for the first time, she had seen her father cry. Marcus Rivers, decorated veteran of the U.S. Army, intelligence officer, tough-faced, but tender with his children. He had grown up in an America that had taken everything from him except his dignity. And he had sworn that his daughter, she, would never be broken. 3 days later, Amina was sent to Approvate Training Center for Traumatized Young Girls, financed by former military personnel. It wasn't a summer camp. It was fire. 5 a.m. wake-ups. Self-defense sessions. Meditation. Mental work. Nights talking about pain. Mornings spent learning to say no without raising my voice. To keep your spine straight even when the world pushes. Amina had come back transformed. She was not a weapon. She was a guardian. No revenge. No hatred. Only one goal: inner peace. But at Westlake High, this peace was perceived as a provocation. In a world where the girls screamed to be seen, Amina was disturbing with her silence. In a high school where Eve fought to exist in the eyes of others, she refused to fight on this ground. And this, it was unacceptable. For those like Brianna Caldwell, this girl who came from nowhere, who didn't ask anyone's permission, was a threat. Not because she was trying to take their place, but because she didn't care. And that was more dangerous than anything. 2 weeks had passed since Amina arrived at Westlake High, and nothing seemed to have changed for her. She had never mixed with established groups, preferring to eat alone, always in the same place, a secluded bench near the library, in the shade of the red maples. Her books always open in front of her, her gaze often lost in space, as if she were looking for an answer that none of the students could give her. This silence, this distance, exasperated Brianna. Not only because she didn't understand what this girl wanted, but above all because she refused to exist in her eyes. Invisibility was an insult. One day, in the hallways bathed in autumn light, Brianna gathered her accomplices, Haley and Madison, for a silent council, an exchange of glances. "Does she think she's too good for us?" Brianna said venomously, her piercing blue eyes fixed on Amina's distant silhouette. "Or just weird?" "Like, weird mystical," Haley snickered, tugging at her perfectly coiffed bangs, mimicking Brianna's seriousness with a mocking smile. For Brianna, this indifference was a declaration of war. She couldn't stand anyone rejecting her social empire, even tacitly. This girl had to understand, at Westlake, you didn't stay on the sidelines. You either fit in or you became an outcast. And she was determined to make an example. The following Friday, during art class, while the class was busy painting still lives, Brianna approached Amina with a studied, sweet, honeyed smile. "Hey! Do you want to help me put the brushes away in the storage room?" she offered, her voice sweet. I always thought we should get to know each other. Amina stared at her for a moment, her piercing gaze probing the hypocrisy hidden behind that smile. She remained silent for a few seconds, but out of politeness, or caution, she nodded gently. They left the room, the other students absorbed in their webs, unaware of the trap that was closing. As soon as they were inside, the door slammed behind them. The hallway was deserted, silent, and the art room, a small room cluttered with paint pots, brushes, and old easels, suddenly seemed very small. Without warning, Haley and Madison appeared from the shadows, their eyes shining with mischief. A cell phone quietly turned on, the camera activated, capturing every movement. Brianna then took out of her bag an object that she was holding tightly, electric lawn mower. "We're just going to freshen up your hair a little, okay?" she said, her smile tightening into a harder expression. "You don't need all that." Amina, frozen, felt her heart beat a little faster, but didn't move. Then she felt the lawnmower approach. A strand of her dreadlocks slowly fell to the ground, accompanied by the mechanical noise. Vrrrr. An eerie silence followed. The girls burst out laughing, satisfied, convinced that they had dealt a humiliating blow. But when Amina stood up, she was no longer the same calm and reserved young girl. She slowly took off her jacket, putting down her bag with almost ceremonial precision. Then, turning towards them, she said in a low, controlled voice, but heavy with contained threat. "You just made a very, very big mistake." In a fraction of a second, Amina's body reacts even before her anger rises. She spins around, grabs the right wrist of Brianna, the one still holding the lawnmower, and performs a fluid movement learned at the training center. Clack. Brianna's arm is suddenly pinned behind her back. Not broken, but firmly under control, in just enough pain for her to understand. "What are you doing? Let go of me." Brianna screams, her voice cracking with a panic she's never felt before. Amina remains silent, her gaze fixed straight ahead, her muscles tense but controlled. She pushes Brianna against the wooden shelf, gently but firmly, her knees slightly bent to stabilize their posture. It doesn't attack, it neutralizes. Haley, surprised by the speed of the action, lets out a small, strangled cry, then charges at Amina, believing he can disarm her with his nails and shouts. Bad idea. Amina steps sideways, spins on her supporting foot, and uses Haley's weight against her. A sweep of the foot, a slide of the shoulder. Paf. Haley finds herself on the floor, dizzy, her skirt rumpled, her hands searching for purchase on the tiles. She's not hurt, but her world has just turned upside down. Amina, however, straightens up, still calm. Her breathing is steady. His eyes, dark and deep, look straight ahead, without hatred, without fear. Madison takes a step back, hands shaking. She's crazy. She's crazy. She rushes to the door and runs down the hallway, tears already welling up, completely overwhelmed. At this precise moment, the door to the reserve opens suddenly. Madame Elkins, the art teacher, alerted by the shouts and muffled noises, bursts in. She freezes, her eyes wide. She sees Haley on the ground, moaning. Brianna, pinned against the shelf, her arm twisted in a posture of absolute submission. And Amen, straight, stoic, with a serious face. On the ground, electric lawn mower still lit, vibrating weakly. And there, at the foot of the shelf, a neatly cut dreadlocks. The metallic smell of heated lawnmowers, mixed with paint and fear, saturates the air with tension. Nobody speaks. Everything is frozen. Mrs. Elkins's gaze wanders over the scene as if she's trying to piece together a nightmare she doesn't yet understand. Then his gaze stops on Amina's cut hair, on her closed face, then on Brianna's decomposed face. What's going on here?" she finally whispers. Amina slowly releases Brianna, who immediately pulls back, massaging her wrist, panting. The lawnmower stops vibrating. A thick, electric silence falls over the room. Within hours of the incident, an internal investigation was launched by the Westlake High administration. The three girls involved, Amina Rivers, Brianna Caldwell, Haley Simmons and Madison Blake, are being isolated and questioned separately. But very quickly, denial no longer holds up in the face of facts. Haley, in a moment of panic and in an attempt to turn the situation around, claims that Amina attacked for no reason. She swears everything is filmed. Strategic error. The video she shot herself, supposed to humiliate Amina, turns against her. The recording, taken from his confiscated phone, was shown in the assistant principal's office, in front of the principal, several members of the school board, 2 district attorneys and, Amina herself, remained straight, hands clasped on her knees. In the video, we hear the laughter, the veiled insults, the buzzing of the lawnmower, Brianna's cry saying, "We're going to tidy up your jungle a bit." Then we see Amina motionless. Then the assault. And finally, his perfectly controlled reaction, disarming, neutralizing, controlling without brutality. The silence that follows the screening is heavy. An educational advisor whispers, "My God." Amina remains silent. A few hours later, Colonel Marcus Rivers enters the establishment. Uniform pressed to perfection. Medals discreet but present. Firm gait. He shakes the director's hand with a measured grip, without warmth or hostility. Just the certainty of a man who knows why he is there. In the meeting room, he asks to speak. Silence comes naturally. His voice is deep, calm, almost soft, but each word resonates like a hammer blow. "Thank you for summoning me. My daughter is trained not to attack, but for not to collapse. She learned to control her body, her breathing, her fear, his anger too. That day, she could have hurt. But she chose to hold back. She could have taken revenge. But she chose restraint." He pauses. His gaze sweeps the room. No adult dares to stare at him for too long. "So I ask you a question, you who are responsible for a system supposed to protect children. Would you have preferred that she remain on the ground, humiliated, destroyed, so that you could maintain your illusions of neutrality? Or that she stands up and defends her dignity, without hitting, without hurting, but with calm and precision?" No one answers. The director clears his throat uncomfortably. The legal counsel takes a note. Another board member looks away. A few days later, an official report concludes that the aggression against Amina constitutes a violation of the Code of Conduct, but also a targeted act of violencia of a discriminatory nature. Ohio state law is clear. Forcibly cutting someone's hair without their consent is physical assault. If this aggression affects hair protected by culture, identity, or religion, it can be considered as attack on racial or religious integrity. Brianna, Haley et Madison are suspended for an indefinite period, pending a final decision from the school district. Amina's parents officially file a civil complaint for assault and racial discrimination. But the matter does not remain within the walls of the school. In the following days, the video leaks. It is shared on social networks, first locally, then nationally. Entire pages of commentary. Debates on television. Hashtags. Hashtag respect her crown. Hashtag justice for Amina. Hashtag my hair my power. Black activists and figures are responding publicly. Left speech bubble, cutting a young black girl's hair is not a joke. It's an attack on her identity, her history, her dignity. Left speech bubble, at 16, Amina Rivers has demonstrated more self-control than many adults. She is not a victim, she is a role model. Amina's dreadlocks become symbol of resistance. Hundreds of young girls are posting pictures of themselves with the message, "To all the Aminas, you are not alone." A few weeks after the incident, when the media storm had calmed down but the looks in the corridors remained heavy with tension, Amina made a decision that surprised the entire school. She refused all interviews, cameras, microphones, articles. She didn't want her story to become a spectacle, nor her pain to be an object of curiosity. However, when she was asked to address the whole school at an assembly in the multipurpose room, she accepted. That day, under the spotlight, in front of her classmates, teachers and staff, Amina went on stage. Silence fell, palpable, almost religious. His straight figure and frank gaze captivated. She took a deep breath, then spoke, her voice clear, calm, but full of a rare inner strength. "It's not the wick they cut that hurts me. It was the looks that let it happen. The knowing silences." The words echoed through the room, touching everyone deeply. "But I'm not a victim. I am a fighter. Not because I know how to fight, but because I know how to get back up." A murmur ran through the assembly, eyes shone, some smiled shyly, others wiped away a tear. At the end of the school year, during the official ceremony, Amina was honored with the Courage and Moral Excellence Award. A rare, almost symbolic recognition, which saluted not only his fight, but above all his dignity and resilience. Her hair had slowly grown back. She didn't let them return to their original length. She chooses to keep them short and stylish, as a symbol of renewal, of mastery over herself and her history. But beyond appearances, what dominated Amina was her head always held high, proud. And that calm look that left no doubt. She had taken possession of her destiny. Months later, as the dead leaves danced in the courtyard, a first-year girl timidly approached Amina in a deserted hallway. "Do you regret what happened?" she asked hesitantly. Amina smiled softly, a smile that mixed tenderness and strength. "No," she replied simply. "Because at that moment, I understood who I really was. And today, no one will ever be able to cut out my soul again." The girl nodded, inspired, before walking away. Amina stood there for a moment, absorbing the dim light of the corridor. She had unwittingly become a flame in the darkness for those who would come after.